Welcome to the Enlightened Pet Behavior Podcast. I'm your host, Susan Light. In a world overflowing with conflicting advice and often misguided information, my mission is to be your trusted source for accurate, kind, and truly effective strategies to understand and shape your pet's behavior. Join me as we shed light on common challenges and work together to foster a deeper, more harmonious bond with our beloved furry family members. If you find the show helpful and enjoyable, please consider showing your support. Subscribing, following, rating, reviewing, and sharing with your friends takes just a minute, but it really boosts the show's visibility and helps more pet parents find it. Thank you so much. It is a very special, one-of-a-kind episode today because Enlightened Pet Behavior is celebrating its first birthday or first anniversary, whatever businesses have. And you might be like, Susan, you're on crack because it's season 6 of the podcast. And it is. It's season 6. Because the podcast started as Doggy Dojo. And again, like my dog training journey did start more than a year ago, much more than a year ago. But Enlightened Pet Behavior is a year old on July 10th, 2026. So just so you guys know how that happened, why I ended up being Enlightened Pet Behavior is I wanted to bring my husband on board full time. And so I had been a sole proprietor. So instead I formed an S Corp, so we both are now employees of our company. So Enlightened Pet Behavior was born a year ago, and now Monty supports me in an amazing way. He's really the primary caregiver for the dogs if they board in our house. He hikes dogs 5 days a week, and he edits this podcast for me. So he's been a huge, huge help. And so I put out a request on my social medias for some questions. People had questions for me, and I said that I would answer them. And so I couldn't think of a better person to ask them than the co-founder, co-owner of Enlightened Pet Behavior. Please welcome Monte Light. Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for all your help this year, by the way.
Yes. Oh, you're welcome.
So you have some questions.
Yes, that I do. I just have a quick question about the podcast. When you started out with the podcast, did you expect that it would be what it is now?
I mean, I don't know what I thought it would be. It's funny to think how different podcasts were 6 years ago. I think of us, there's so much more prolific now. Like everybody has a podcast. Not in like a bad way. But I know that I did it really just so I could learn. It was, a lot of the questions I was asking in season 1, I was asking because like I wanted to know. Oh, and then I, have kind of segued into as I feel like I've learned more to really wanting to help other people learn. So now it's less about I still learn things all the time from my past. I don't want to say that I don't, but it's a lot about having a resource that I can give people that doesn't cost them money. Because it's just there's so much garbage out there that to kind of combat that is really important to me. So, yeah, so it's kind of started as I wanted to learn, and it has now become like I want to teach.
A lot of things are remote these days in terms of, working remotely with people who are in the office or everything like that, having your pets at home. Like, what what would you recommend doing during Zoom calls with your dogs?
Just let them bark in the background. I podcast. No, no, no. No, no, for sure. So I think that it's really important. Barking is kind of a tough thing to deal with, and honestly, like the longer they do it, the harder it is to um I don't want to say stop it, but to be successful, to set them up for success because they practice it. And obviously, barking is a very doggy behavior, and I won't get into it a lot, but there's many reasons why dogs bark. But what I don't recommend you do is wait until they bark and then go like get them a Kong or something, because then you teach them that, oh, when they sit down at the desk and look at the weird thing that is the laptop, if I bark a lot, they'll go get me something delicious, a Kong or a bully stick or something. So what you really want to do is get ahead of it and get them that delicious bully stick or Kong before. so that they can kind of encourage them to settle. And then I also think it's an underrated skill that a lot of people don't teach their dog to be in another room of the house from them. And what we call like Velcro dog. I mean, Val is literally sleeping at my feet. So when I say Velcro dogs, I know what they are. But or, Velcro dogs do not translate to separation anxiety dogs, which I get a lot of people who are like, you know, my dog, if I try to put them in the bedroom to do something else, they just lose it. But they can leave the house, and when the dog's alone, they're fine. So they're not the same thing. But I think it is important to help your dog get comfortable being in another room, and it's something that when I work with pregnant couples or couples who are adopting, just anyone expecting a baby, that's something that we try to teach the dogs. It's like, you can't always be with us. Sometimes you're going to be over there. And it's an underrated skill for like modern life. So, they can practice hanging out in another room from where you are so that it's just less of an issue altogether. I think that's also a good skill.
Is there any advice you would give to pet parents that are particularly preoccupied with that? Because I know they get so embarrassed sometimes, like, "Oh, sorry that my dog,"
My dog jumping.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is 2 questions in a row really about, like, how to stop my dog from doing something, and so here's the thing that I mean, believe me, this is what most of our questions are.
It's true.
So we can't teach a dog what not to do, we need to teach them what we want them to do instead. So, for the barking, it's like we really want you to just lay down and eat your Kong toy or be okay in the other room so I can have my call, right? So for the jumping, you gotta think about what you really want them to do is keep all their paws on the floor, when they're greeting people. So, we have to teach them that. So if you, for instance, this would be something that you could start doing if they're upset, is like, you don't pet the dog when they're jumping on you, right? You yeah, I know, I so, like, this gives and you could even cue them to sit, right? And then once they sit and again, they don't have to sit necessarily, but if they sit, it's harder for them to jump than if they're standing, right? So, like, if they'll just stand there without sitting, like, that's fine too. But you could ask them to sit and, pet, 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 then they get the pets. But if they jump on you, it's like, oh. I will say it's a fine line because the general advice is always like, oh, ignore the dog that's jumping on you. But if you have like a 90-pound dog,
Not as easy to ignore.
stand there and ignore it. No, like, tell it what you want it to do. And then, reward that. And then if you were the pet parent, what I would do is, you have them on leash, for instance, when you're picking them up, they can be on leash and they can step on the leash. So, like, I would say if your dog's take your dog's leash and just let it where it naturally hits the ground, just step on it. You're not trying to drag your dog down, but they can't really get any air. So that moment when they're just, like, so excited, they're like, "Ah, ah, ah," they really can't jump, and then they're way more likely to just, like, kind of relax for a second and possibly even choose to sit because if you've really reinforced sitting, and then you can get to that same place where you're able to greet them and reinforce the good behavior, but you actually got to skip the bad behavior at the beginning. Does that make sense? Which is a lot more successful when you just don't see the bad behavior at all. Bad, the behavior.
Right, the undesirable.
And you can do that when people come over to your house too. People don't think of but sticking their dog on leash inside the house, but you can do that when your guests are going to come over so that you can step on the leash. You can also teach them place, which is like a stationing behavior. Be like, we're over to place, so I'll pet you over there. But then you still have to do the thing where it's like, they can jump on you from place, you know? You still have to be like, "Oh, oh, no, it's only when we're sitting." So, lots of reinforcing the behavior that you wanna see and helping them make good decisions, anyway that you
We always think about putting on sunscreen. Do dogs need to put on sunscreen?
Dogs can get sunburn. Um, it White dogs are more at risk. Short-haired dogs are more at risk because the sun can get through the fur to the skin, right? So, it's not a huge risk for I would say most people, but certainly if you are very outdoorsy, or you have a short-haired, and you have a short-haired and or white dog, like a short-haired white dog is the most at risk. Then yes, there are pet sunscreens that you can get. You can also get, clothing, UV blocking clothing. So, like, they can wear like a sunblock shirt and like they even have hats, so I know, so cute. Some dogs don't like to wear clothes, they don't tolerate it, but yeah, they're you don't but what I will say is don't put your sunscreen on your dog.
That was my next question. Like, you can't just grab your sunscreen.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that. We want a pet safe sunscreen that in case they lick it off, it's not gonna be toxic to them. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's high up on concerns that a lot of people need to worry about, but certainly some dogs with some lifestyles are at risk. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I think that's interesting too. Sometimes pet parents aren't always aware of what is specifically something that a dog needs. Like there's doggy like toothpaste or doggy sunscreen, as opposed to something where it's like if they're taking them into the vet and they need certain medications, it's actually sometimes the same medications that are given to people in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, I would and I think that we probably mentioned this in the pet first aid, don't ever assume you can use a human medication or human anything on your pet.
Human anything. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like, sunscreen, bug spray, medications, because some things like Tylenol's really toxic to dogs. So,
Right.
you say that it's true because, gabapentin, trazodone, these are things that both pets take and humans take, in appropriate doses, but there's a lot of things that don't cross over. So,
Right.
especially like pain meds, like there I don't know of any human pain meds that dogs can take or
Uh,
cats. And also
interesting.
yeah, there are some things that dogs can take that cats can't and vice versa. Like they metabolize things differently. So, you could even assume that you can take your dog's medication and give it to your cat. You really need to make sure that you're checking with your vet. And honestly, if you can give them a human thing, like they're not out to rip you off. Like the vet will just be like, "Oh, just give him Pepcid or give him Benadryl if it's safe." Do you know what I mean? But, like, you don't assume that it's safe because a lot of it is not.
And it seems like sometimes dogs will go for everything in the house except the toys that you buy for them. Like, that sometimes is the case with some dogs, isn't it?
Yeah,
Why is that?
hear that sometimes.
Why is that?
So, I mean, I think that a lot of times that we see behavior like that, the dog's probably understimulated. Um, if they're really looking for things. Also, I think maybe they weren't well managed as a puppy. I see a lot of puppy clients that just have full reign of the house when I get there, and I'm like, "Ooh, this is not something that we want." You don't want to be following your dog around, being like, "Drop that, get out of that, stop that, whatever." Um, you know, for your sanity and their safety, right? So
Right.
a lot of that starts if you have the opportunity, if you adopt your dog as a baby, of you managing their environment so that they don't have access to all that stuff that you don't because as a baby, as a puppy, they're gonna put everything in their mouth. They're gonna grab your shoes, they're gonna grab the cords, they're gonna grab a remote control, and then
Just like a toddler.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you kind of need to keep their world a little bit smaller until they can really handle it. And we keep our shoes out of the animal's reach all the time because we have so many dogs coming in and out. We just have a shoe cabinet by the door. I think I don't
Right.
know, but if we leave a shoe out, our dogs don't chew on shoes. Why? Probably because they didn't chew on them when they were puppies, right? So some of it probably was that, and some of it can be under stimulation, and some of it's they're just looking for things. Um, some of it can be anxiety. Like if you have a dog that's like chewing your baseboards, I had a case where the dog was chewing the siding off the house. And
Whoa.
yeah, that to
That's
me
pretty.
brings anxiety, that
Wow.
they're really trying to make themselves feel better and it's just not working. So, you could do that. You can look into that. But you can also just try different things. Some dogs don't want to play with a toy unless you help play with them. Like sometimes you give them a basket of toys and they're not going to play with them unless you are like, oh, our play. Sometimes you have to
Right.
play with your dogs. And then try things with different textures, different things. And, don't get mad. Like if your dog loves to shred stuffed toys, but they don't swallow the shredding, I know it's annoying probably picking it up all the time and buying them new toys, but that's great, you know? To give them that, they're probably gonna pick up your pillow and shred it, because they
Right.
just hurt so much. So, try different things, find your dog's thing that they like, and then also, like, I have suggested before that you soak things in, like, broth to try to make dogs more interested in them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, some toys that they just like, you can't get them interested. You can try soaking them in broth.
Does it matter what kind of broth?
Just as long as, there is broth for dogs. You know what I mean? You want to make sure
Going
that,
to
yeah,
dogs.
garlic and onions and stuff in it.
Right.
But yeah, but, because some of those toys they actually are flavored because that's trying to make the dog more interested in it. So you can kind of shortcut that and flavor it yourself. It's like the Kongs. It's like you put peanut butter or food in the Kongs, and then some of the dogs realize they like chewing on the Kong too, right? But like if you just handed your dog an empty Kong, it's the first time they ever saw it, they'd probably be like not interested in it at all.
Got it. Eating this that's crazy to me, eating the siding.
Yeah.
Or the was that, like was that a breakdown in earlier training? Like, what it
This was a dog that had never lived inside, but that
Oh,
outside in the yard, it started, like, destroying everything, including, like, eating the siding on the house.
interesting. Is that well, like, when it comes to training, like, what's a what's like, where do you start? And what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do, I guess, basically? Are there, like, common
That's a
mistakes?
broad question.
Well, but, like, are there common mistakes in training
Oh,
that
sure.
people make, kinda thing? Well, what are they? What are they, honey?
Many, many common.
I guess that's more specific. Like, what's the biggest mistake that people make in training or when they hire training or whatever,
Oh, okay. I think I get kind of what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
I think I think probably the biggest mistake that I see people make is only focusing on training and not focusing on the whole picture.
Okay.
So I always tell my clients that we're going to take a three-prong approach and it's going to be enrichment, management, and training. And I think, if there's those three prongs, you have a good chance of success. But I see people really focus on just the training. They just want to train the dog to not do the thing that they don't like.
Right.
Yep. And to kind of expand on that, this is what I mean. And when you say like, is there a right way to do it? There's a wrong way to do it. Absolutely. So you have to start with enrichment. Enrichment is just, and there's, God, I think it was like episode 4, way back in season 1 about enrichment. And I've been meaning to do another episode on enrichment. So hopefully we'll do one again soon. But enrichment is really just a fancy word for meeting all of your animal's needs. So, you have a captive animal in your house. That's what they are. You're responsible for making sure that all their needs are met. So, and I'm not just talking about like puzzle feeders, which is what people tend to think is the beginning and end of enrichment and Kongs. So, enrichment, when you talk about meeting all your pet's needs, there's a pyramid of needs. And actually, humans have many of the same needs, but there's a pyramid of, yeah, we use a pyramid of needs. And at the base of the pyramid is freedom from pain, safety, security, food, and shelter. Okay.
Mm.
So if an animal doesn't have those things, it's not, it's going to have issues, right? So,
And it needs to know that it's gonna get those things. Is that what you mean by that?
yeah, so this shows up in a lot of ways. One, freedom from pain. This is why always, always, especially when we're dealing with aggression, we want to make sure that a vet is involved and that our pet is healthy and not in pain, because that a lot of aggression is rooted in pain, and it's not always muscular skeletal pain. It can be GI pain. It can be, all kinds of things. So we have to make sure that that is taken care of first. It's not only unethical to train a dog that's in pain, but it's going to be pretty ineffective. But food, water, and shelter, right? If they're living with you, they probably have those things. But then we have safety and security, and they're not the same thing.
Okay.
Safety is being safe, and security is feeling safe. And you can have one and not the other. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
A dog that you just adopted from a kind of unknown backstory might hide in the corner, shaking, really scared, not sure what's going on. That dog is empirically safe, but does not feel secure, because they don't you know that they're safe. They don't feel that they're safe. So a lot, I have cases like that where that's our first goal is to get this dog feeling secure, right? And then you have dogs that are sitting in their owner's laps as they drive down the highway, possibly with their head sticking out of the window. And I see this all around.
I know how you feel about that.
This dog feels secure. They're sitting in their owner's lap, but they are not safe.
Not safe. Yeah.
They are this close to either jumping out the window to chase a squirrel and they're in the middle of the street, or a fender bender where they're killed by the airbag. So this is what I mean. So you can have safety and not security, and you can have security and not safety.
Got it.
But at the base of that pyramid, we need all of those things to be in place. So you're giving them food, water, and shelter. If they, and safety, if they feel secure and they're free from pain, which is honestly where, hopefully the majority of dogs are for most of their life, pet
Right.
dogs, and cats, you know what I mean? Obviously, this applies to other pets as well. Um, then you move up the pyramid to the things that we're talking more about more often, which is falls into four major categories of enrichment that I talk to my clients a lot about, which is physical exercise, mental exercise, calming enrichment, and instinct or breed based enrichment. And most people understand that dogs need physical exercise.
Sure.
I think people sometimes that's the only thing that they think they need. And that's where, it's
That's where I come in, as
so
a
dog absolutely needs physical exercise.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And some breeds more than others. And so,
Oh,
some
yeah.
ages more than, more as they're younger and, a little bit less as they're older, perhaps. But a lot of people make the mistake of only focusing on physical exercise. And that's where we get that old phrase, a tired dog is a happy dog. And it's like, not really. A tired dog's just
Mm.
tired. And they make the mistake of just trying to exhaust their dog. We talk about this in the adolescent episode. She's like a lot of dogs in adolescence. You go hike them for 2 hours and they sleep the rest of the day, and you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. But like, then if you just try to do that, you're actually going to condition an athlete that you can't keep up with because they're going to get more and more fit. And that 2 hour hike suddenly is not going to exhaust them all day like it did before because they're getting more fit. Right. So
Interesting.
they need physical exercise like we need physical exercise, but not for the purpose of sedation, of making them sleep for the rest of the day. Right. And so then we go to the other 3, which often get neglected, which is mental exercise. Most dogs are, and cats, by the way, huge for cats, bored out of their minds living inside our houses. And then
Yeah.
so we need to do some, mental enrichment. So teaching them something new is mental enrichment. That's why the puzzle feeders kind of fall in there. Um, but puzzle feeders are only mental enrichment until they've done them multiple times, and then it's just a slow feeder, which is also fine. But,
Mm.
teaching them tricks, training falls under that, mental exercise. Then we get to calming enrichment, and again, you can give your dog all of these other things if they never learn to quiet their nervous system and rest and be calm, um, that they're gonna struggle. So, calming enrichment is licking, sniffing, and chewing in things. So your Kongs, your bully sticks, licky mats, sniffle mats, those kinds of things to kinda help them learn to quiet their nervous system and calm down. And then, breed and instinct-based enrichment is where your dog gets to be a dog. Doggy things, digging, barking, running around, maybe fetch, right? If they like to retrieve, tug, ripping up and dissecting things. So, like shredding your trash if they don't eat paper and cardboard, you can give them that to rip up, or ripping up those toys that I talked about. That falls in there. So, yeah. So they get to just do some of the things that we bred them to do a long time ago that they don't have to do. Using their nose, oh my god, right? Like anything
Right.
where they can sniff something out, scent games or barn hunt or, all those things. So, um, if that sounds super overwhelming, you don't have to do all of those things every single day, right? But like
No.
if you're having issues with your dog, some of it might just be them trying to meet some needs that aren't getting met yet. And so if you work to meet those needs a little bit more, you might find that the dog's a little easier to live with. And then so that's the first thing. And then we get to so that's just the first thing. That's
Right. That's a
so
lot.
I'll go a little faster through the rest of it. So then we have management, and there is a whole episode about management with Juliana Willems because she wrote a book about management, so there's a whole book about it, but management is just preventing rehearsal of behaviors that you don't like, because the more you practice something, the better you get at it, the more likely it's gonna be reinforced and,
Mm.
whatever. So we try to prevent it. And a great example of this is potty training, right? Like you set up your puppy's world so that they hopefully are going potty outside. You're running them out all the time or you're watching them very closely. And then every time they go potty outside, it makes the case for them and, every accident that you prevent. And suddenly as they grow up, they like pottying outside, right? And they're suddenly potty. So that's training that happens almost entirely through management. So, window screen on your window film on your windows so that they don't bark at the mailman, that's management. White noise so they don't hear the mailman, that's management. Management is really, really important and often neglected. And then we do the training, right? So, that's where we're actually going to like teach them their skills that we want them to know, their cues. Or if we're doing behavior modification, we'll be doing some desensitization, counter conditioning kinds of exercises. But I think a lot, if you're saying like, what's the wrong way to do it? People jump to that and they skip the rest of it, and you
Mm.
results.
Interesting. Well, there were two questions that I had based off of what you were saying. Going back to enrichment, does being introduced to other dogs help with that enrichment?
So I would put if you have a social dog, I would put playing with other dogs down in there's some overlap between these categories. So it would count as physical exercise if they're playing with those other dogs. And if they are social and they enjoy those social interactions, that can also be in that breed specific category, right? Because dogs are social. Uh, so it's like kind of meeting that need as well. So yeah, I think not all dogs are social. Not all dogs enjoy being around other dogs. But if you do have a social dog, yeah, definitely that's great for them.
Are there like really important or sort of special tips for introducing a dog to another dog?
So I'm since I've already talked for so long and we're running out of time. There is recent episode about dog play that really goes more in depth than that. But
Okay.
yeah, I don't in general, I don't let my clients or I tell I'm not with them all the time, but I tell them not to let their dogs greet other dogs on leash. It's a very unhealthy way for dogs to greet. It's very unnatural. So, ideally, the best place would be someplace where it's safe for them to be greeting each other off leash and in a neutral territory that doesn't it's not one dog's space or another dog's space to lower the chances that they might resource guard, the space. So,
Got it. Well,
yeah.
one more question, going back to something that you said that, understimulation of cats. I know that you do cat cases as well. I love cats as well. Is that one of the biggest elements of your cat cases that you deal with? Or what kind of cat case did you deal with?
The biggest element of cat cases tends to be eliminating outside the litter box, which is why that was, I think, the first cat episode that we did when we branched out would you to Enlightened Pet. And it's actually the number one reason that cats are returned to the shelter. It
Mm.
goes next,
Oh my god.
which sounds horrible, but if you've ever lived with a cat that's just peeing all over your house, I mean, it's miserable, right? So, yeah, so that's probably the biggest cat behavior issue. That cat to cat aggression, and oh, like waking people up in the middle of the night, which kind of goes with the understimulated thing.
So
Yeah.
same sort of thing where it's like flirt poles for cats and things like that so that they
Yeah, like your cats need to also play. Like the cats have that same, very similar pyramid. So the cats need to do the breed specific thing for them would be it's recommended that you play with your cat at least 15 minutes a day. If you have multiple cats, to separate them and play with them separately at least 15 minutes a day. Play that replicates hunting and that kind of triggers the natural flow of a cat, which is, you know, hunt, eat, groom, sleep. So this is the cycle that we want to see. So we want to basically, play with them with like the flirt pole or the little bug toy or like whatever, and then give them something to eat, which even if it's like a couple of treats, or their meal if you're timing it that way. And then hopefully if it's going well, they'll just like groom themselves and take a little nap. And so
I love it when our cats groom themselves.
so cute.
So cute. I mean, I could talk with you for hours, and we do, but those are some very interesting like questions that I'm glad you answered on camera.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Enlightened Pet Behavior Podcast. I hope you and your beloved pets have found valuable insights for a more harmonious life together. Please remember that this podcast provides educational information only and is not a substitute for professional veterinary or behavioral advice. If you need personalized support, please don't hesitate to contact me and we can explore how we can work together to achieve your pet behavior goals. You can reach me at enlightenedpetbehavior.com or via email at susan@enlightenedpetbehavior.com. This episode was edited by Monte Light. Special thanks to Mac Light for composing the podcast's music. You can find him at maclightsongwriter.com. Treasure those fur babies, and I'll talk to you next time.